Yoga Vasistha is certainly not promoting delusions and hallucinations. It's saying that we are suffering under delusion and hallucination in general. I think the Yoga Vasistha would probably say that most of us are actually in a psychotic condition. And I think maybe that it's possible that psychosis is a partial realization of a spiritual truth. And it's a very damaging partial realization. And part of this truth, of this wisdom, is about the interconnectedness of all things, that there is nothing separate going on. And I would say that the psychotic is characterised by this separateness, by a lack of empathy, by a lack of compassion. So yes, perhaps we are moving through a process, a period of psychosis, though, as this teaching comes to its fruition. Just as Rama, the prince, is possibly in a state that we might call one of psychosis, taking the form of deep despondency and depression, that life is not worth living. So it's quite possible that people that we regard as psychotic are actually people that are stuck spiritually. Anyway, that's just a suggestion. But I'm thinking, but it is a bit worrying, isn't it? This notion that everything is a dream. The implications of it might be very unacceptable to many of us, and so we're not prepared to go there. We're not prepared to accept the dream nature of what we understand as reality. There are obstacles to accepting that, and it's worth trying to identify some of these obstacles, I think, because I don't think there's any doubt about the case for this being a dream reality. I think all the objections can be answered. So, where are we? We are with Lila, Queen Leela. Queen Leela is visiting the scene of her husband's reincarnation. And it's towards the end of that reincarnation as King Vidurata, and he's died on the battlefield. Her husband has died again. And she's actually met his wife, or seen his wife, the second Lila, who fainted. She swooned into unconsciousness when she saw her husband being killed on the battlefield. And the Lila who swooned, the second Lila, had received a boon from the goddess Sarasvati, to the effect that she wouldn't be separated from her husband. Vasistha continued, O Rama, the second Lila, who had obtained a boon from Sarasvati, rose into the sky and there met her daughter. The girl introduced herself to Lila, and Lila requested her to guide her to where her husband the king was. The girl thereupon flew away from her mother. And this is strange, isn't it? What on earth was Lila's daughter doing hanging around in the sky? And how come Lila didn't recognise her? The girl had to introduce herself to her daughter. Well, I suppose this is a bit like a dream, isn't it? Perhaps Lila didn't have a daughter, but now suddenly she has. And perhaps she had a daughter. The daughter had died, and in the battle, and Lila was a bit disoriented when she found herself up in the sky. Anyway, all she's thinking about is her husband, and the girl is going to take her to her husband. First, They passed through the region of the clouds. Then they passed through the region of air. Beyond that they went through the orbit of the sun into the starry heaven. They proceeded still further to the realms of Brahma, the Creator, Vishnu and Shiva, and after all that into the summit of the universe. They were able to do all this even as the coolness of ice is able to radiate from the ice jar without breaking it. Of course, Lila, who had an ethereal body composed of materialized thought, experienced all this within herself. So in other words, she didn't really go anywhere. Passing beyond even this universe, Lila crossed over the oceans and other elements that envelop this universe, and entered into the infinite consciousness. In that infinite consciousness there are countless universes which do not know of one another's existence. This actually reminds me of the hypnagogic state that you can experience as you fall asleep. If you try and maintain some sort of alertness as you're falling asleep, you start seeing all these images, a vast stream of images, completely unrelated to each other. There might be people in them that you don't know, weird occurrences, weird sensations. It's a massive, tumultuous flow of images. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it's certainly very similar. Lila entered one of those universes. It's a bit like when you're falling asleep, you latch into one of these hypnagogic images and it takes you into a dream. Lila entered one of those universes in which lay the body of King Padma covered with a heap of flowers. King Padma is the husband of the original Lila. He's lying in state. She again passed through the regions of the gods, Brahma, etc., entered the city and the palace in which the body lay. But alas, when she looked around, she could not see her daughter, who had disappeared mysteriously. Wonder what that was all about. She recognized the king as her husband and thought that having died a warrior's glorious death on the battlefield, he had ascended to the hero's heaven. She thought, by the grace of Saraswati, I have physically reached this place. I am the most blessed among persons. She began to fan the king's body. The first Leela asked Saraswati, seeing her, what did the servants of the king do? Saraswati answered, the king, the servants of the royal household and all the rest of them are only infinite consciousness. However, since the substratum is the reflection of the infinite consciousness which is real, and since there's a conviction in the order of fanciful creation, they recognize one another. The husband says, she is my wife, and the wife says, he is my husband. So this is a bit like when she saw the daughter. She didn't recognize the daughter, but the daughter said, I'm your daughter. And so she went with it. It is a bit like a dream. We are told these relationships exist, and we go along with it, at least in the dream state. She could not go in her own physical body to the new realm because light cannot coexist with darkness, and as long as there is in oneself the blind notion of ignorance, wisdom does not arise. When the wisdom concerning one's ethereal body arises, the physical body ceases to be recognized as true. This is the fruit of the boon that I granted her. The recipient of the boon thinks, just as you have made me think by your boon, so I am. Therefore she thinks she has reached her husband's abode in her physical body. One may ignorantly see a snake in the rope, but the rope cannot behave like a snake. So, Leela is in this ethereal body, which is somehow more real than the physical body. Again, I think this is like astral projection. When you're experiencing an astral projection, there is a sense of reality to it, which we might laterally dismiss as some kind of hallucination if we don't believe in astral projection. But I don't think we should make too much of that right now.